presented in the new indictment. Well, joining me here in the studio, Democratic Congressman John Garamendi of California. He's a member of the Armed Services Committee. You've traveled a long way to see me in person.
Delighted
Usually
to be
we're
here.
doing the long distance thing on camera. I'm glad to have you here as well in studio. Your reaction first, sir, to Roger Stone there. In another part of the interview, he was calling his Twitter exchange with Guccifer 2.0 benign and innocuous.
He's trying to protect himself. Plain and simple, he's trying to dissemblate. He's trying to push it off in some other direction. Let's be very, very clear here. We have every one of the American intelligence agencies saying that the Russians hacked into the computers, that DNC as well as John Podesta.
DCCC as well,
exactly,
right?
All of that. And now we have the indictments. We've had Mueller doing an investigation for more than a year and come up with 12 more. We now have 32 Russian indictments.
5 guilty pleas.
5 guilty pleas. And, okay, Roger Stone, you're trying to protect yourself. We understand that. But that's not where the facts are. The facts are elsewhere.
Does this indictment answer any questions that you had?
No. It just adds additional weight to the facts that were already known. We've known for more than a year that Russia hacked into and then used that information, having stolen it. That's where the law was broken. They stole the information, breaking American law, and then used it illegally in the American election. Now, you know, Trump is going to Helsinki tomorrow, excuse me, on Monday, and then
he actually leaves tomorrow, so you're right. He does travel
there. Either way, he'll be there, and he says, I will ask. This is not the time for the president to ask. This is the time to look Putin right in the eye and said, you did it. You're going to pay a price for that. Don't you mess with the American election this time. The president has to stand up for the American democracy.
Do you expect him to do that? Do you expect him to go up to Trump and say, look what we've gotten. We've got these 12 indictments. We have this on these Russian intelligence officers. What are you doing, Vladimir? Do you expect him to say that?
He must say that. He's the president of the United States. It is his job to protect the American democracy, to protect America. That is his principal task. That's the oath that he took for office. We know that Russia's an enemy. Russia's not a friend. Russia's an enemy in so many different ways. And this is the time for the president to stand up for America, to say, I will not tolerate this. You are going to pay a price. Stop it, period.
That's what you want him to say. But let's take a look at what the president is saying on Twitter and see if that gives you an indication as to whether or not he's going to do what you were suggesting here. Here's what he says, tweeting from Scotland this morning. The stories you heard about the 12 Russians yesterday took place during the Obama administration, not the Trump administrations. Why didn't they do something about it, especially when it was reported that President Obama was informed by the FBI in September before the election? So He's pointing the finger to President Obama. He's not pointing it at Vladimir Putin.
This is a 5-year-old on the kindergarten campus that is refusing to accept responsibility. He does this all the time. He always shifts to somebody else who's responsible. No, Mr. President, you're now the president of the United States. This is your responsibility at this moment to protect our democracy. I think Obama made a decision, perhaps a wrong decision, not to interfere in the election. And this is something that's lost on Congress, obviously. The Obama administration did not act on information they had because they did not want to interfere in the election. That's the fact underlying all of this going on in Congress. Now, we are where we are today. We know what Russia has done. We know what they did in Ukraine. We know what they did in the European elections. We know that they overtook Crimea and Georgia, all of those things. And it's time now for this president to stand up and simply say, it must stop. If you don't, we can take action, and we can do some very serious countermeasures for what you have done, Mr. Putin.
Okay. There's that,
yes.
And that's something you hope will be said in this bilateral meeting. There is going to be a news conference. It was announced by the Finnish officials that will be happening after this meeting, where no doubt the president will be queried by reporters there asking about this. What do you expect he will say? Do you think he will get tough while standing side by side at a lectern with President Putin, with whom he has seemed to have, or at least wanted to pursue, some sort of a bromance?
Well, exactly. It's time for him to stop hugging the Russian bear. The Russian bear is a very dangerous bear. It's time for him to stand back and frankly punch the bear in the nose.
Let me play for you what the president told my colleague Kristen Welker. This happened yesterday about whether his open criticism of NATO, which we saw this week, is giving President Putin the upper hand. Here it is, everyone.
Let me explain something. We have left NATO with more money, with more unity, with more spirit than NATO probably has ever had. When you look at what we've done in terms of Russia, I guarantee whoever it is in Russia, they're saying, oh, gee, do we wish that Trump was not the victor in that election. We have been far tougher on Russia than anybody.
The president maintains a certain stance against Russia, while at the same time he tends to go after American allies. What do you make of that? And what about Congress? Can you do anything about that?
Well, in fact, Congress did. 100% of the members of Congress voted to make it absolutely clear that NATO is critical. We passed a resolution.
Yep.
97 of 99 members of the Senate did the same thing, making it very, very clear. We're conducting hearings, some of which are classified, making sure that the American military presence in Eastern Europe is strong and viable. This is something that started in the in the Obama administration more than 3 years ago. Some $5 billion, equipment, men, material, and at the same time working closely with NATO countries, Germany, other countries in Eastern Europe, in the countries of Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, making sure that Russia knows that they cannot continue to act as they did in Ukraine.
Very quickly, the U.S. standing within the NATO organization, do you feel there has been damage done?
Oh, absolutely there's been damage. Everybody is trying to paper over a very serious breach that the president created. Good that they're papering it over. We've got to move forward. We've got to stay close to NATO. We've got to be with the European Union, all of whom the president has attacked. After attacking them, then he says, oh, everything's fine. We've got to work very, very hard to make sure that everything is fine, that we have strong allies in Europe and as well in Asia.
Representative John Garamendi, so good to see you here.
Pleasure.
Up close and personal. Thank you so much. Coming up next, what potential legal trouble Roger Stone might be facing, whether any of it leads back to the White House. MSNBC legal analyst Katie Fain